going to be respectful of your time and try to get this done in an hour with ample time for the majority of the time for questions and answers. And our panelists mostly will stick around afterwards if you have a straight question that didn't get asked and answered. Some of these folks will be returning to work, however, I will warn you, so, but we'll try to get your questions answered. I'm Scott Stevens, Executive Director of Communications for the Shaker Schools. Again, thank you for being here. We have a terrific panel, I think, that covers almost any question that any audience can come up with, and they are here tonight to help us all understand where we're at and perhaps a little bit of a picture of where we're going. But to my left, first, let me just briefly introduce the panel so you know who's here, if you can't see from the back. To my immediate left is Fire Chief Patrick Sweeney, our excellent Shaker Heights Fire Department. Thanks for being here, Pat. I was going to say, hope your applause at the end, but I guess I blew that. Pat certainly deserves it. Next to Pat are two folks I think most of you are probably very familiar with. Megan Konopinski, a teacher at Fernway School, and Chris Hayward, of course. We are lucky tonight to have representing the Board of Education our Board President, Jeff Isaacs. Jeff? Lucky to have the Honorable David Weiss, the Mayor of Shaker Heights, here with us tonight. The Mayor has been a tremendous friend during this crisis, and not a surprise at all, but he's been tremendous every minute for us. So thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Next to the Mayor is a very important person in this scenario, and it's somebody you probably don't know, and that's Bill Mangaluzzi, who is President of All Disaster Services. Bill has been on the scene from day one, securing the scene, cleaning up the scene, and assessing the scene, and coordinating everything that you can imagine, with insurance adjustments and Lord knows what else. He is an amazing guy, and if you want to know what it's like to work 18 hours a day for 10 straight days, go up and ask Bill after the meeting, okay? He's done Bill, great work. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, the person who's kind of held us together in the administration building and really kept us on focus on the task, the many tasks ahead of us, and that we've had behind us in the last 10 days, Dr. Marlo Robinson, our Chief of Staff. Thanks, Marlo. The one person I did introduce, of course, is our interim superintendent, Dr. Stephen Wilkins, and Dr. Wilkins will speak to you in just a minute. And we kind of walk you through, just take 10 or 15 minutes as to where we're at, and then the rest of the evening will be open for questions and answers. After Dr. Wilkins is done, we just ask you to line up at the two mics in the middle row here, and we'll just take you one mic at a time, you know, one after another, right, left, until we're done. So be thinking of anything as you hear Dr. Wilkins speak, any questions that might occur to you. One thing I wanted to do tonight was to thank Principal Karina Freeman here at Longmont School. Mrs. Freeman had to leave for a family commitment, couldn't be here at the meeting tonight, but she and her staff, including custodian James Dean, did a tremendous work getting this at a very short notice, getting this set up tonight. So we thank them very much. I think without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Wilkins. Dr. Wilkins, most of you know, has been our Assistant Superintendent of Operations for Business and Operations for 5 years, and now is in the new role of Interim Superintendent. You know, you look for lucky things out of situations like this, and one of the lucky things is to have somebody like him leading the ship. So, Steve, take it over.
Scott. Hello, Fernway community. Hello. Okay. So My name is Stephen Wilkins, and I am the interim superintendent. We're here tonight to give you an update of where we've been, where we are, and where we are going. As this is a recorded meeting, let me give a big shout out to all the Fernway fans from across the country who have sent me cards and letters of encouragement as we go through this crisis. Fernway may be small, but it is big. You know, here in Shaker Heights, we're not just a district of schools, we are a family of schools, and I want you to know that in a time of need, a family rallies together, and we are rallied together around Fernway. I also want to thank some special people who are here, and I know we've kind of done it a little bit already, but I want you to again hold your round of applause, right, for our great hero here to my left. I can't do this enough. But Chief Sweeney and his team of firefighters were just phenomenal in responding to one of the largest fires in Shaker history. More than 20 departments helped put out those flames, and did you know that his heroes were on the roof fighting the flames, right, at the very last moment until it became so bad as the fire just raged across that roof that they were extracted. Folks, you couldn't do it any better than a Hollywood script. These guys are real heroes. Pat, again, thank you for everything that you did. Thank you. So we're here tonight to answer your questions as best we can, and this is just the first of several meetings that we'll have to resolve the repair of the building and the temporary school, and of course getting Fernway back into its home. So as you came in, I hope that you took a handout, and if you can take a quick look at it, it has a monthly calendar and a copy of the slides that I will use tonight. So if you would, please take a moment and just glance at those 2 months of July and August, and just think about the time frame that we are in. So you know where we are today. And we have to get a temporary Fernway stood up so they can open successfully on August 22nd. It's less than 30 days to stand up essentially a new school. So time is of the essence. Yet I want you to take away from tonight's meeting the thought that we are organized and we are working to do this great feat. Our guiding principle is to keep Fernway students with Fernway teachers no matter where we are. All of us, administrators, faculty, and staff, as well as city officials and other partners, are all working together to make this happen. At the same time, I want to emphasize that we are also working to ensure that our other 7 schools open successfully on August 22nd. But we are going to get it done. So with that preliminary comment made, let's get into this briefing, and I'll briefly sum up where we are on the building and the temporary school and get to your questions. Let's talk a little bit about building stabilization. So in regards to the Fernway building, the structure itself, right? As district officials, we cannot guess about the next step for the building. We need to follow a process to review and conduct our due diligence. Only after we stabilize the building and allow the fire and insurance inspectors to complete their work and complete a structural assessment can we begin to even consider a sound plan about the restoration of the building. This process is complex, it's complicated, it's dynamic, and we learn things each day as we go along in this process, so it changes. And these are just some of the steps here that we have to go through. So let me just kind of articulate just a little bit about what this means. The first thing, of course, that our expert here from American Disaster Services Bill did is secure the facility, right? Once the firefighters release the scene to us, we first got to gain control of the site, got to get the water, and as you all know, the fire destroyed the roofing structure, but because there was a concrete pad underneath, right, the fire didn't go down into the building. Right? However, right, all the water that was placed on that building structure did what? Came down through the structure. So essentially, we have, of course, a new roofing structure that we need due to fire, but the damage below is really water damage. Everything in the building, right, was essentially soaked. You have water behind the paint, and that goes all the way from that second floor all the way down into the boiler room, right? So you got to get the water out. You have to remove debris, right? You have to account for the contents, salvage materials, restore utilities, right? And still, most of all, we got to put on a temporary roof, right? Just last week, I was out on scene 10:30 at night. There was a storm, right? There's still water coming into the building. Bill and his team had to respond. We got to keep the water out, right? Until we can get this temporary roof structure on. So I won't go through the rest of these, but just understand it. It's not necessarily linear, but it's cumulative. So you secure the facility, remove the water. As you're removing the water, you still got to keep the security secure, right? If you remove the water and secure the facility, still got to remove the debris. You still got to keep doing all those things you did previously and sustain all of that work until you get the building into a condition where it is completely stable, right? It is secure, it is safe, and it is dry to work in, so then we can conduct a structural assessment and make a decision about the way ahead for the building. So this process is going to take some time, and I would just ask for your understanding to be patient as we work through that process. Now, many of us have questions about the roofing company, yet we must understand that this is an ongoing investigation, again, supported by Chief Sweeney and his officials, so we can't really comment or speculate on that at this time. We have to wait for all that process to complete before we jump to any conclusion. But the building stabilization process essentially is on track, it's running, it's well organized for success. So my focus right now is less on the building, and now it's back to opening school and the new temporary Fernway school. So let's talk about that. Again, so guiding principles, you see them there. Again, Fernway students with Fernway teachers. We also want to maintain that great learning environment as best we can, no matter where we are. And my third guiding principle is that we support Principal Chris Hayward all the way throughout the process. You want to know why am I making a big deal about that? I want you all to know that Chris Hayward and I are linked on this. He is with me. He is right by me. In fact, he is in the office above me right now. Right? He occupied a business office, and every day Chris and I are working together to make things happen. And every staff officer knows that they will align and do their work under Chris Hayward's guidance and insights about what matters to Fernway. So he's my Fernway community expert. So where are we looking for this new temporary school? So as we look at it, big picture now, we can go to a building, we can go to modular classrooms, or we can disperse the school into our elementaries or absorb them and share the facilities for a while. Okay? So we're looking at all three of those options. Okay? And so you'll see that there. This is not an easy thing to do. When we want to take our time, we got just a few days to figure it out. I understand that, right? But we really want to kind of think it through, and the staff is working 24/7 to do their analysis to make sure that what we choose to do is the best possible course of action that we can take in this crisis. So to move into a new building, we're looking at proximity, right? How close is that building to the Fernway community? Right? If you think about concentric circles, that's how we're thinking about this. What's within the first half mile, mile and a half, 2 miles? And we just keep going out and looking at the facilities that might possibly be available. We also want to take a look at the availability. Can we get into that building right now with a little bit of work, or does that building become available in another, let's say, 90 days or so? What about the condition of that facility? It has to meet some minimum standards, right? We've got our students to take care of, and there are some absolute code requirements, particularly such as ADA and some other things that have to be in a building for us to run a school. And of course, we also have to think about cost. But I can tell you right now, my mind's not about cost. My mind is on finding the right place, right? So the cost to move, the cost to occupy, and the cost to return, right, are a little bit down the list of things as we go through the search process for the site. But it is there. Our goal is to make a decision on where we're going to put the temporary Fernway School no later than August 1st. No later than that, because days matter. If I can make the decision next week, with the support of the board, that's what we intend to do. But this is a hard thing to figure out. We're doing our research on it. We're studying, right? Right now, we know that our fallback position is to place the school or shared, in shared school facilities, right? So we know we can do that, and we're working that plan out. But we first want to see, can we find a building to house Fernway? Okay, who's doing what? Staff task force. How are we organized to do this? And I want to take you through this just quickly to let you know how we're organized to make sure that we can pull this off on August 22nd. First of all, our chief of staff, right? I have Dr. Marla Robinson working my coordination, right? She's responsible to make sure that we stay focused. Put it in layman's terms, she herds the cats, right? Right? She's making sure that all these actions that we're doing, right, are integrated, synchronized, and focused to support answering this problem about where do we place Fernway. Dr. Terry Breeden is helping out on our site selection because she's our technical expert on the educational environment. Where is Fernway has to be a place that's going to be good for the teaching and learning environment. She's going to do that for us. Of course, Scott Stevens and team, daily information for communications. Our webpage is up and running. I hope you check it out after this. Shaker Schools Foundation, right? Holly Coughlin's working a lot of support, right? As I mentioned, we have cards and letters coming in from across the country. People want to donate either to the building or either to the effort for the temporary school. So Holly is essentially right now our traffic cop to make sure that those donations get placed at least into the right category, where later on we will figure out more about how those funds will be used. Big effort going on there. Information tech, wherever the students go, they'll have their Wi-Fi, communication, computer access, all that. John Rizzo's doing that. Operations, Dave Boyer, just brought him on board last month, and we're both learning as we go along. But Dave, security, custodial service, food service, all that. But also, he's my man to do relocation. Okay? And then finally, our treasurer operations. Brian Crispin, right, one of our best treasurers within the region, if not the state of Ohio. Brian and I are linked on figuring out what is an extremely complex, complicated insurance process and helping me out on all that, plus the legal and other financial funding supports. So that's how our team is organized. But I want you to know that we have a special task force just dedicated to this particular problem, and this team is going to make it happen. Let me close out, and then let's get to some questions. This is just an example of some of the sites that we have been reviewing over the past few days. And I get ideas and suggestions each and every day. I have this up here because I want you to know that we have been receiving that information from you, and we are looking at all these places. I would simply remind us that we go through that criteria that I talked about, and we're saying, does this do that or this or not? And we weed them out, and we're still looking. In fact, we got another visit tomorrow to a building site to assess. Modular sites. We know right now that we could probably site modules within 90 to 120 days, right? Really nice facilities, right? But it's where do you place them, right? So we know right now we have space at the middle school field and Mercer Field. You're saying, well, why not right here at Lomond Field? Well, one of the things you have to think about too is parking, right? Parking, right? At least at the middle school field, and this is just conceptually, not doing it, just conceptually, but we could possibly put modulars there and still put in a temporary parking lot there too, okay? So this is I'm only saying that to kind of emphasize that this is complicated and the staff has to take some time to kind of figure this out, and that is exactly what we are doing. So as I close, I just want to emphasize that we have to get this right about the building and about the temporary school. And we understand that you all need some answers and deserve answers about what happens next. But we want to make sure that we give you the best answer possible based upon facts and the best information that we have. So our focus now is less on the building, more about the temporary school. Folks, we got a school to run and we are on it. So Scott, let's go ahead and open for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Wilkins. Well, as I said at the onset, we have 2 microphones set up. You'll see Chuck Tisdale there adjusting them. They're working. And we just ask if you want to line up behind either one and kind of we anticipate a line forming and just take turns back and forth, right and left. And if you can address your question to any panelist or to the panel as a whole. We do ask that, as always, that if you can keep it a question, that would be helpful. In respect of everybody's time here, and keep it brief, and we'll get as many questions in as we can. And I see Lorene right off the bat.
Good evening.
Lorene, yeah.
Well, stop that.
This is a good way to start. Thank you, Lorene.
Well, first of all, I know that everyone shares my feelings of gratitude and my feelings of hope. This is an amazing thing that has happened. It's a sad thing. It's not a tragic thing, and this is wonderful to see how we'll overcome it. And thank you so much for all your support. First of all, I'd like to know if the temporary school sites under review are in any order of what we want. And my second question, the follow-up, is about Ludlow School. Is part of the, because I believe there is a clause in the lease that says if there's an emergency in one of our schools, we can take it over. Is it just, if we don't immediately do that, because I know the footprint is the same as the Fernway School, if we don't do that, is it because it's so difficult for the PEP program to evacuate in this short amount of time? Thanks.
So I'll answer that question. So in regards to the former Ludlow School building, as you mentioned, Lorene, it is leased to the Greenview PEP program. And that lease is still good until 2023. There is no specific emergency clause per se that would allow us to break that lease and occupy the building. Nonetheless, we are still in discussions with officials there to look at options. So I'll leave it at that. But we are looking at Ludlow. The schools that are listed on the slide are simply listed in alphabetical order. So as far as to say there's a specific criteria that says look at this versus another, each site in and of itself is assessed, and we make a decision almost right away, right? And that right away may take a day if we have to go visit the site. But we want to get to a site as quick as we can. Now, certainly, almost immediately we'll know, does that site more or less have the space, right? More or less. And we kind of go from there. But we've had offers for smaller spaces, and we say thank you very much. All over this area, everyone's rallying to support Fernway. So as best we can, we're going through these sites.
Before the next question, I just want to suggest there are a few seats up front. If those of you who are standing want to sit down, please avail yourself. Don't worry about coming in front of us or anything. Just come on up and find a seat. Okay, we are maxed out on the number of seats we're allowed to have for those of you who just walked in, so we'll do what we can. Sir.
Hi. I'm a Fernway parent, and I just want to say that Fernway Elementary School is so much more than just a school building. It truly is the heart of our Fernway neighborhood. It's the reason why many of our families chose to live in that neighborhood. So what I'm asking for today is your commitment that Fernway will remain a neighborhood elementary school, whether it's in that facility or a new facility on the same footprint. But we want to know, will Fernway remain our neighborhood elementary school today?
I'm Jeff Isaacs. I'm president of the board. Let me tell you that you heard some of what Dr. Wilkins said about the various factors. So we understand the energy, the importance of these neighborhood schools. We all have kids that went to schools, that have the same kind of neighborhood centered on the school. So we're hoping to be able to make that promise, but we're not able to yet because there are too many unknowns. But that's what we're all pointed towards, and barring some unforeseen circumstances, we'll certainly keep you posted, but that's what we're that's what we're working towards.
Okay. I look forward to working with you. I look forward to working with you more in the future on this. I think we're all anxious to hear your answer. I can only speak for myself. I don't want to speak for everybody in this room, but I think, at least for our family, anything less than it remaining a neighborhood elementary would not be acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm just wondering, I'm sure probably won't really know for sure until closer to August 1st, but I know there's some activities planned for the incoming kindergartners, like the play dates and the ice cream social. Are those still going to happen?
Yes, we are definitely going to be having a lot of phase-in activities, and one of the things I would say is that for this year, because it's going to be different, we're going to have to look at probably have even more than what we've had in the past. We're still unsure with where we're headed at this point, but I promise you that we will be working hard to make sure that every single student feels comfortable, reintegrating as a school community into whatever facility we happen to be in the fall.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple other people who obviously come into the microphone. Please don't be shy. Come on up and ask away.
Go.
Whomever wants to go first.
Mine is actually more of a request than a question, but some parents who aren't here tonight, I said I would represent for them. They would love to get placement letters and maybe even classroom assignments sooner than, we usually get it like a few days ahead of time, so that we could kind of get the kids at least ready and excited for some aspect that they could look forward to. So I know some people asked and would appreciate that under consideration.
Thank you.
When you were talking about the modular sites, you said that would be a 90 to 120 day build out. Is that even possible given that we're looking at an August 22nd opening date? I mean, on the one hand, I think there are aspects of modular that would be fabulous, but I'm just thinking for the kids to, okay, it's August 22nd, you're gonna start here, but oh, it's 2 months later and now we're gonna move you over here. I just worry if that's even realistic.
That's a great question. So, and you're absolutely right. If we move temporarily into, let's say, our existing elementaries, would we move Fernway again into a modular setup? And the answer is that we're looking at that. We haven't made a decision. And the reason is that we still need to think about, again, the best environment for the Fernway students. So if the school is, let's say, split, do we want to maintain that status for a year? Or do we want to take some time and bring you all back together? And so that is something that we're studying right now and working with Principal Hayward to kind of make a decision. And so I can't answer that, but is in our thought process, is to make that assessment. Once we get you in a temporary situation, start school, do we stay or do we bring you back together?
Just one other comment, which is, obviously the community has come together and rallied in a way that's pretty damn amazing. We are here for you. Tell us what you need. It's not just, people have been donating, we're fundraising, but we have a lot of very talented professionals in the Fernway community that I can only speak for myself, but I would be willing to lend a hand in any way that I could, and I'm sure there are other professionals who would be happy to do so. So please just tell us what we can do. So.
Well, I have to give you a compliment again. Fernway community, the Fernway fan club is Chris Hayward. This is remarkable. I got to tell you. You all are just wonderful, and we certainly are going to need your help. And as soon as we can make a decision, we'll let you know. Absolutely, we're going to need help as we start out the temporary school and getting that all going. Because think about what has to happen. So we don't, we're going to say this is where we're going. Then we have to have an orientation for the teachers themselves, right? Then the parents and the students, right? Then the pre-opening and all that. And that has to happen in literally days. And so we need all the help we can get all hands on deck, and so thank you very much for that offer.
Well, and the other thing I'll say is, my kids don't even go to Fernway anymore. They've both clapped out. But I'm here for the
See how big
neighborhood.
the Fernway fan club is?
I'm here for the neighborhood, not just the school.
That's right. Thank you.
I'd just like to say before our next question, please kind of queue up here, if you will, if you have a question, and you don't mind lining up, it can move a little more efficiently, then we'll get more questions in. Thank you.
So this is more of a logistical question. Some of the choices on the list there are farther away. And if you had a child who does aftercare, for example, would you plan to bring the kids back to Fernway for an aftercare program, or would we be driving out to Tri-C Corporate Campus? What are the thoughts around the aftercare or before care?
Yeah, so that's simply one of another criteria that we consider as we look at the proximity. That's why I was talking about how far it is from the Fernway neighborhood. That's certainly one of the things that we are thinking about. So again, this list is just letting everyone know that we're taking all ideas, right? But we are vetting them against a set of criteria to make minimal impact on the parent-student relationship, if you will, right? We don't want parents traveling miles. We don't want students traveling miles. We want you all as close as we can, if not in Shaker itself. So we'll end up that way, one way or the other.
Okay. And my second question is kids who have special needs. How are you taking that into account, where your special needs services couldn't be at all the schools at the same time?
Our goal is to be able to meet all the same needs that we had just this past year. And so our faculty will be traveling with us, again, wherever we happen to be. And if we're deployed across multiple buildings, we will ensure that those students and their special education IEPs are met in the same exact way that they were last year. That may cause some flexing of staff to a degree, but we're positioned to be able to make sure that we can meet the students' needs.
Thank you.
I'm not sure who this is a question for, perhaps Bill, perhaps Patrick Sweeney. It's probably too early to tell, but what is the preliminary assessment and forecasting of mold and spores in the basement?
I'll take that one for you. As you heard early on, part of the initial assessment, the first evening I walked through with Chief Sweeney and a few of his firefighters, assistant chief and different people and some of the board members. It was raining in the building, a lot of water. My team's first order of business was to get all the water squeegeed out and extracted out of the building as quickly as possible. So we worked that first night. I think the scene was turned over to us like 4:30 or 5 o'clock on Tuesday. We were there till probably after midnight, trying to do the preliminary. We were back at 7 a.m. the next morning with some generators and different things. We immediately treated and we put together a protocol for getting out the heaviest wet debris, floor carpet, ceiling tiles that were wet, that were accessible to get to, furniture that was wet, that was out, that needed to be taken out for the big bulky wood furniture. Tried to minimize the amount of impact. I know that if you heard the whole building was wet, there are pockets of the building that did not get wet. A lot of the classrooms were wet in the middle of the ceiling, middle of the floor, but the perimeter where there were cabinets and storage and books and shelves and things, a lot of those did not get wet in some of the rooms. So those things we basically had worked to secure, and the items that were wet we worked on getting out. A lot of you saw the neighborhood, probably items out in the parking lot within the first couple days. Those were things that we deemed salvage, things that we were able to get out that were out of harm's way to allow us to work in the building. We do have air scrubbers running in the building for fine particulates, for mold spores, for any bacteria spores, anything like that. We have applied an antimicrobial to prevent that. We do that daily, sometimes twice daily. As we go through the building, I have one group of our team that is responsible for going room to room each day to look if there's any potential fungal. We look at a visual assessment, and then we are going to be working on some environmental assessments as well.
Thanks, Bill.
Hi. I first just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys for everything you've done so far and in advance for the work you had to do. My question is specific to the modular sites. If that were to happen and it is 90 to 120 days out, what's your plan as it relates to the number of days that are necessary throughout the year as far as actual classroom days, makeup days, I should say?
I mean, our plan is to start day one. So
okay.
if we are able to start day one, whatever facility in, or the potential for multiple facilities, there will not be any kind of a need for any kind of makeup days. We have some challenges with transportation and making sure that we're going to have to figure some of that out, because we will not have to bus the entire school population. But if we're able to start on day one, there will not be any kind of a need for makeup days or anything along those lines. So we should start. My goal is we're going to start and finish at the same time as the rest of the district.
And so I think you're asking, what about the days if we transition?
Yeah, if 90 days is the
so-
minimum, we're going
right.
to be into the school year.
Exactly. So part of our planning, again, with the staff under Dr. Terry Breeden is answering that very question, right? Do we have enough days in the calendar year that we can free up, if you will, for moving days? Can we work with the state to help provide some type of waiver or some type of other assistance to allow us that time to do that? So we have that under consideration as one of our planning factors.
Okay, thank you.
I want to add something to that, sir. In recent years, Ohio law has changed that the length of the school year is no longer X number of school days, it is hours. And we have to submit that to the state, and currently Shaker's hours are well above the state minimums. Okay. So that places us in a good position to have a buffer or to have some time if we need it, where the students wouldn't have makeup days.
Okay.
Okay?
That's good. Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Roberts. Great question.
Hi. Question for Bill. I'm not sure. First, I want to thank the commitment to have Fernway teachers teach Fernway kids. The next thing on the list that a lot of parents are talking about, including myself, is making sure the teachers have what they need for day one. Now, I was at the Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, and we were talking about the time it takes for you guys to get in there, move things out, determine what's safe to be used again. And my understanding is the teachers were able to kind of do a walkthrough to assess their things, but they really haven't really been able to really get in there to see really what is salvageable and maybe what needs to be replaced. And of course, they've spent a lot of their own money to make their classrooms. So when will they know what they really need to replace so that we can mobilize and get them what they need?
Maybe Chris and Megan, maybe want to address that? Yeah. Chris, Megan, maybe.
Well, I think there's two components to this,
Go ahead.
Bill and also for Chris.
Good.
I think for Bill, if you could just talk about some of the salvage operation there, and where are the things in the classroom that you took out? Where's that kept? And then Chris, maybe you can comment about how you make an assessment as far as are the classrooms ready to start?
Part of the first order of business, like I had said, was, our first order of business was life safety, making sure the building's safe for occupants to get in and out. The second thing was to see what we can get out that's salvageable to make space within the building so we can maneuver and work within there. So knowing that in the situation with the school being closed and having to have possibly a temporary or another location, this time of year it's very hard to get school furniture and different things, so we wanted to try and get as many things out as possible. So a couple of the storage bins that we have there are ready to go. The items have been cleaned. They are ready once we have a location to be transporting those items there. As far as the lady's concerned about the teachers' items, yes, the teachers had a walkthrough on Monday, which we accommodated. It was a little bit more, I don't know if I would consider it a little emotional for some of them, maybe closure for some other ones to get a chance to see what's going on there, because there really hasn't been a lot of information out there. It's really hard for us to say to let the teachers come back and dictate what they want to keep or not keep. Right now, I've got a group of people in there assessing what's going to be salvageable, what's not salvageable. Once I get that established, we'll bring the teachers and notify them, hey, this is not going to be good. I have engaged a group to come in that's going to freeze dry some of the books. So items that are damp will be taken and freeze dried to prevent mold spores from growing on the pages. Those books will be ready to go. We do have a large amount of books that are available from the majority of the classrooms. Again, knowing that it's summertime, a lot of school districts have placed their orders many months in advance for upgrades or changes. It's going to be difficult to get materials, so we are still assessing that. But as far as the teachers' items, and I've heard a few parents that asked, a lot of teachers do outfit their classrooms. And those are the things that I think the teachers are still going to need to go forward, and I'll let Chris talk about that. But those are the things that make Fernway's community. Those are the things that make it special for the kids, for the teachers, the parents, and I can see that in the artwork on the walls, the things that are within the school and the community, and those are important things to put back. And so we've heard a lot of people asking what they can do to help for that. And I'm totally with Chris to take over that part of it.
First off, I want to say it's amazing considering that there were over 300,000 gallons of water that were poured on that building within 4 hours, that as much as salvageable as it is. I mean, my first walkthrough was that same evening after they extinguished the fire, and I was blown away. Yes, there's extensive water damage, and some classrooms got hit a lot harder than others. Certain areas of the building got hit harder than others. But there is, I mean, the good news is that a lot of our materials that are okay. Now, what we're working through right now is the teachers had a chance to get in, had a chance to inventory and take a look at the things that they know are damaged. And so they're creating lists and we're sharing that information. My understanding is that we're going to be getting back in there probably within the next week or so, and there'll be a sort of a closer, examination of what may have been damaged. Bill's crew is also going through the building right now, and they're going room by room, and they're also in the kind of an itemizing kind of a way, finding things that maybe we didn't realize on our first visit that may happen to have been damaged. So the back of the book may be totally wet where the front of it hadn't been. So we're continuing to kind of find that. At this point, what we're going to do is, and I actually had a conversation with some faculty members about this today, we're going to create like a system of identifying for all the teachers to be able to say what their needs happen to be. So this is what I need, this is what was damaged. Again, different teachers have different needs. So at that point, I mean, I want to thank so much the community in terms of your outreach and your ability to work with our schools, Shaker Schools Foundation, work with SHTA and their funding mechanisms, as well as we have the building budget. And so I will be mobilizing my building budget to be able to purchase certain things, and then we'll obviously be using those other two kind of revenue streams to be able to kind of make up the differences where the teachers have lost larger amounts of things. Okay?
Megan, do you want to add anything to that as from a teacher perspective?
We did get to go into our classrooms, and it was emotional. But I know different teachers, like Mr. Hayward said, had different amounts of damage that they got to see. So I think that it's so wonderful that our community is reaching out and wanting to do so much. But at this point, things are kind of a little up in the air. There is a lot in my room that I thought was salvageable, but I wouldn't be surprised if after the rain comes through and we take a closer look. Like I took a whole bag of anchor charts and I was so excited my anchor charts weren't ruined, and then I looked closer and they were all wet at the bottom. The top was fine, but the bottom wasn't. So I have a feeling that kind of stuff is gonna come up more. So I think that the smartest thing to do probably would be to wait just a little bit. I know we're all anxious to do something. I know I'm sitting on pins and needles wanting to do something, but it's hard to wait. But I think that maybe waiting a little bit just to get that final assessment would be what is needed, so that we don't get things that we don't need instead of the things that we do in the end.
Thank you.
And if I can just add that this is all part of the accountability process of the contents of the building. So we can't just simply let our teachers come in and take things out. They have to be accounted for from an insurance perspective. So it's again, just think about the challenging process of that. So if our equipment, our teachers' items have been damaged, we want to make sure that we get that on our claim. So we do have to take time on. But short of that, on the procurement side, right, we're looking at fast track purchasing authority, right, to make sure that we can get supplies in. And again, with the help of the community out there, and certainly with Chris Hayward and Megan's guidance, we'll make sure that the classrooms have at least a minimum amount of things, certainly to start up class.
Great. Next question?
Sorry. First of all, thank you, everyone, for everything you're doing thus far. It's been great, and I know you all have a lot of work ahead of you, so thanks for that, too. So I have a request and also a question. The request is I've got an incoming kindergartner, and I think this actually that would be helpful. I don't want to speak for other people, but for all the kids. Once you do know where we're going, is there a possibility for one of these kickoff, beginning of school things to include a tour? Because I know it was really helpful. I know you can't give us a tour of a space you don't have yet, but once you have a space.
Yeah, I could take you to a lot of places.
Right. Road trip?
No. seriously, like that is critically important. In fact, I've already started lining up. I mean, it's been amazing to me the people that have reached out across Shaker Heights. First off, I mean, Shaker Heights, this is what Shaker's all about, the community aspect of people from all the different neighborhoods across the city, former teachers in this district, former administrators in this district. People are lining up, and as I'm responding to them, I'm kind of putting them on some short lists on different things. And so we are going to be able to tour wherever we're headed. We are going to have opportunities because in the past we would have a new family kindergarten, kind of a ice cream social, because the building was new to a few people. This year it's going to be new to everybody. It's going to be new to me. I'm going to have to figure out where the paper clips are, right? I mean, so it's going to be important that everybody feels as comfortable as possible come day one. And yeah, as soon as we know what that site selection happens to be, we'll try to figure out how we can get the staff in there as quickly as possible. Then obviously the next step is try to get our families there too.
Okay, great, thank you. And the other one was a question that I'm not actually sure who to direct to, and there may not be an answer. But if you do have to divide up the kids either for the duration of the school year or for like a short period of time, has there been any thought to how you're going to do that? Is it like kindergarten goes to Mercer, third grade goes to Lomond, or Stockholm goes here and Maynard goes there? Like, has there been any thought about how that might happen?
Obviously, we're thinking about a bunch of different options, but right now, in terms of what's going on in my head, is that we're going to keep our grade level bands together.
Okay.
There's a variety of reasons for that. It's important on the curriculum side of things, but it's also important in terms of our playground experience, in terms of students being outside, being near their friends. So should we be divided across various buildings, my goal would be to keep grade level bands or multiple grade level bands together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have two questions. The first is from a Fernway student. Around the corner from where I live, there's a house that burned down not too long ago because they were working on the roof. My understanding is that there was a fire the day before the big fire. So my question is, what happened? I guess that's the question. How did this fire happen?
Chief, you want to give us what you know here?
Yeah. So this incident is clearly still under investigation. There's a lot that we're very meticulously looking at to try to put this whole incident together. And it's starting, clearly the day before and up through this incident. So I know there's a lot of questions about that. I can tell you that we've got a lot of people mobilized on this. And I'm amazed at, the responsiveness of all the people that we need to be involved in this are there as quickly as they are. So it's too soon to really get into the details on it. But we know that everybody is very concerned about that, and just rest assured that we're doing this as detailed and meticulously as we can.
All right, thank you. Second question is just, if I had picked a site, there's one site on there that I don't see. It seems to meet a lot of the criteria, and it's the library. It's close, it seems to be big enough, it's got a playground, it's got a field next to it, and I'm just wondering, is that on the list, or has that been excluded for some reason?
Yes, it's on the list, and again, this is just an example of the sites that we are reviewing, so yes, we are reviewing the library as well.
All right, thanks.
Excuse me, I have a question. I know it's a traumatic time, but how much money is this going to cost us? Is insurance going to take care of it all, which I doubt? How much money is it going to cost us? And we ain't talking about chump change here. I just want to know.
So the answer is we're still working through that process. So it's going to take a while to figure out. I think to answer your question in kind of the details that you want, but we certainly have our insurance coverage that is there and that we're working through that process. It's just going to take some time to figure out.
So we ain't talking about putting nothing on the ballot, right? We ain't talking about putting nothing on the ballot, right? Emergency funds or levy, I'm excited. It's going to cost money. We know this. I just want to know y'all don't got no surprises for us later on down the field. Okay, that's all I'm asking. Okay?
Our intent is to use the insurance process.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. I had two questions, but one person already asked one of them. So my other question was, I know that this is a hard to answer question, but when would you possibly know how long it would take to go through this whole process of opening the school again? Not when will the school open again, but when would you possibly know when you would be able to open the school again?
I really don't want to speculate, but I'll simply say that as soon as we can figure that out, we sure are going to let everybody else know.
Thank you.
I'm Annette Tucker Sutherland. I grew up in Shaker. My 3 children attended Fernway School. I came to the fire site and stood on somebody's lawn and with tears in my eyes about the change that I know is in front of us. But my question is, having served for a couple years on the district's facility planning task force, I know that this is a district that has 8 aging school buildings and a declining school population. And as painful as it was, the district has at times closed buildings, has repurposed buildings, I attended both junior highs in Shaker growing up. Now one of those is a grade 5-6 building, another is a grade 7-8. So I know that sometimes the changes work out to be better for everybody. So my question is whether the school board will look carefully at every option and what is best for the community as a whole. We're a school system. We're not just one school. We are several neighborhoods, several schools. We have constituencies in each of our buildings. So I'd like to know that the school board is going to look at every option, whether the best option is to restore the building or remodel it, or whether there's some greater shuffling around of which students are in which buildings and which buildings are to their best purpose.
Jeff, that seems to have your name on it.
So thank you for that easy to answer question. And the simple answer is absolutely yes. We will study, as you described, the facilities are what they are, the student population is what it is. And we're watching the trend, as everyone is. It's a long-term question. We're going to take that into consideration in terms of sort of what the overall footprint of the school district's facilities look like. Now, there are many, many options for how to address this. And as I said earlier, there's certainly a deep understanding that the community schools are highly valued in our community, and we have other ways to address it as well, but they will all be considered before committing large sums of taxpayer money to any course of action, and this is a process that will be ongoing as the district continues to evolve.
Thank you.
Hello.
There's a question earlier about who the cost of all of this. Obviously, nobody knows that, and the question about insurance and the insurance process. I imagine there's going to be a gap. There's obviously some immediate need, and I don't know what your cash reserves are, but has the state offered anything? Has the state offered, our friends in Columbus, the ones, Mayor Weiss, the ones who with the local government fund? And if not, is there anybody that we should be reaching out to encourage that?
Who are these friends, Dan?
Yeah.
Let us know.
It's a serious question, and it seems like a place where the state would step in and say, hey, here's some emergency funds. This was a rainy day for you guys, so we have this money in the rainy day fund.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question, Dan, and I appreciate it. And the answer is we will explore any and all possibilities, including emergency funds of any strength. It's probably worth starting the process, although again premature. We really don't know. There are multiple parties involved, multiple insurance coverages, so it's a little unclear at the moment what that gap might ultimately be. But we'll pursue anything that
Thank you.
You've got that exactly right. We've begun, Dr. Wilkins can speak to that because he's been the one to outreach, but we've begun conversations about the possibility, and having gone through, worked with the Ohio School Facilities Foundation, OSCC, we do know a few people around, so we're familiar with folks and we'd be done asking for help.
Another question?
Hi, thanks for having the event tonight. I was just seeking clarity as to whether, we alluded to before and after care a little bit earlier, and I just wanted a clear answer that yes or no, the aftercare and before care plans will not be affected for Fernway families.
So I have had some preliminary conversations with our before and after care staff, and their goal is to work with us. We don't know where we're headed at this point. Before and after care is a function of the city. It is not a function of the school system. So I'm not sure that anybody at this table right now would be able to definitively answer and speak for them on their behalf. But I can tell you that they are very interested in being there for our students. And you know, I can't imagine them not traveling with us wherever we would end up going. So I'm confident in my head that's not the number one thing I'm worried about right now. I can promise you that.
Thanks, Chris.
Good question. Thank you.
I want to thank you for everything that you've done so far. Really appreciate that. I have 2 questions. One is, we have other systems here, school systems in Ohio that have moved students around, set up modular buildings. Have you contacted any of them to get some lessons learned so we don't make the same mistakes they made, or some information they can give us, like Cleveland Heights, Whitney Young, they've done renovation projects. So are there any lessons learned? Have you reached out to them?
So the answer is yes, and in my own personal experience, I've set up many modulars, so I'm familiar with that process. Again, it takes some time to get them here, but then there's also the aspects of siting them, and then also putting up utilities and all. So there's a number of requirements to go to in place those modular classrooms. But yes, we're familiar with that, and we will reach out to other districts to learn about what they can tell us about setting those facilities up.
Okay. And then my next question is there a project manager that's going to manage the project for a single point of contact to put out information or how it's coming along? Because we got all these different heads, and it's got to be one that's going to be driving it. So have you named a project manager to facilitate the renovations of the school, or whatever you're going to do with Fernway?
I think if I understand your question, you mean with respect to the building itself?
Correct.
As far as the restoration of the building?
Correct.
Yeah, so we will identify a single point of contact to run that particular project.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll keep this short. Thank you, Fire Chief Sweeney, for all your work on the building. I get emotional just seeing you because I know that you saved our building. Whatever happens, you saved the building. So thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dr. Wilkins. Thank you to the school board. Thank you for all of your work. But I'm really here to actually thank Bill. I live on Dorchester, and so every day at 6 a.m., I see your team there. I see the guys coming in, and you're there at midnight oftentimes. And so your work is what's going to allow us to either stay in that school or, move on to the next phase. So thank you so much. We're here for you. We're here for your team. And so if there's anything we can ever do, whether it's move our cars around, we just want to thank you for your work.
The parents of the Fernway area have been phenomenal. The PTO and the response, bringing the guys ice, bringing water, bringing Gatorades. I had a lot of you reach out to us. I'm from the Mayfield community. I'm involved with the youth sports and the schools where my boys go to school, and the shared community reminds me a lot of that. And you guys are a really special community. From like I said, the snack bars, the fresh fruit for the guys. It has been hot. It's been humid. It's been much appreciated. As I said at the onset, it's not expected. It is appreciated. The guys are really thankful for it, and thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
So I want also to extend my thanks, obviously, but also thanks to the community who was able to involve the children in that process. That was great. My question is not directly related to Fernway, and I know you said we can't know for sure what happened, but I know there is other roofing work done at other facilities, including Woodbury, where the kids are at camp right now. So I was wondering, what is the status of those work?
So those, we actually have been out to all of those sites and assessed the operations and have found no hazards that are being undertaken right now. So, you know, this, so you don't have any concerns about that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Hello. A comment and a question. My comment is I really like the discussion about looking at temporary schools. And I haven't really heard a lot about the fallback measures, and so I really appreciate that we're focusing on temporary schools. My question is, are we to assume what we begin with in the school year is what we will continue with through the end of the school year? And do we think that would be just 1 year, 2 years? Any idea?
So again, our fallback position as of today, right now, is to open schools and other elementaries, right, to keep our students here in Shaker. Whether or not we maintain that location for the remainder of the school year is an action that that's still under study. So we will let you know as soon as we know. But it's obviously an essential question to answer.
Thank you. Please come up. We have, I just want to note, just in fairness to everybody's time and the warm night, that we have reached the 7 o'clock hour. We are willing certainly to take a few extra questions if you have them, or if you want to chat afterwards with any of the panelists, that too. But just to keep an eye on the clock, in fairness, I know everybody's got families to go back to and work to go back to. And Bill's,
I've got a job site to get back to. So.
Thanks, Bill. Go ahead.
My name's Gabriel. Ever since my 4th grader started at Fernway, his 2 sisters have looked forward to going to school there, and they know all the teachers know them, all the kids know them. As far as where we end up going, is the goal to put all of Fernway together, or is it to put 2 or 3 grades here, 2 or 3 grades there? And then the other question I have is how will we or will we maintain some of the intergrade interactions, like the 3rd grade musical performance and the mediation and the 2nd grade helpers for Miss Cachet's room? Those things, like, my kids adore those traditions and they look forward to them all year long. So.
So I will comment, and then I'll turn it over to Chris to kind of close out on this question. But please know that if there was a building right now that we could move into, we would be in it. Okay? The challenge is finding a building. We are literally pounding the streets to look at these facilities to find out, is there a building that can house Fernway? Because you're correct. Our goal is to keep the whole school together. If we can't do that, again, the fallback position is to use our existing elementaries, right, to house Fernway, to at least keep us close together as best possible and work through that process. But our primary intent from day one has always been, is there a way to house Fernway as a whole? So we're working through that process. It's very difficult and challenging. Again, we just ask for your understanding. If we can't do that to open schools on August 22nd, we'll have to use our existing elementaries. But our goal from day one has always been to keep Fernway whole. Chris?
I want to reiterate that. That's my goal. And if a staged kind of a transition from a temporary into a permanent facility, if that were to occur, for me personally, having the kids together, allowing us to have those interactions between grade levels, and all the other aspects that a K-4 school experience can provide, that would be my personal goal. We have visited other sites. I can honestly tell you right now that so far there's not been a site that I felt comfortable with that would be able to provide the same kind of level of experiences and expectations and education for your children. And I want to thank Dr. Wilkins and his team for involving me in that process. We're going to have another visit tomorrow. Hopefully that one might work out. I mean, the chance is something, might pop up within a week or two. We obviously have to have a contingency plan. And for me right now, I would honestly say, I know what the other Shaker schools have to offer. This is, I mean, the fallback plan has some merits, has some positive aspects of bringing our community together in a way that we've never done before, okay? Now that's not optimal to me though. I'm not looking to be driving around Shaker Heights, visiting 4 different elementary schools and saying, that's Fernway. That's not Fernway to me, okay? Can we do it? Yeah, we could do it. But I want to get us back together as quickly as we possibly can. That's my goal, but I'm not going to do it and place our students into a facility or advocate for our students to be placed into a facility that I don't think we can provide what you as a community expects of a Fernway education.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Thank you, panelists, and thank you everybody who came out tonight. I would reckon 325, 350 people based on the chairs being filled up, and that's a great turnout. We really appreciate it. As Dr. Wilkins said, we will be having more meetings of this type. And if you have a stray question, just come on down and talk to one of the panelists. Okay? Thank you very much.